welcome back from Thanksgiving, I guess. Did anyone go home for Thanksgiving? Yeah. Yeah, of course you did. I went home for Thanksgiving, and it's really tough for a senior to go home because no one really prepares you for when your parents start asking if there's someone special in your life. Just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We were on report cards a few short years ago. Let's take a chill pill, Susan. Is there anyone special in my life? Yes, my fish. His name is Miguel, until death do us part. Luckily, that's in like 2 years if things go well. Miguel is the best partner because he's super quiet. He eats the same food every day. He's never jealous when I hang out with other fish. Jealousy is a weird emotion. I think it's gotten a little out of hand these days. Does anyone else get jealous when they see their Uber driver accept another ride while you're still in the car? Just like, who's Lucy? How many women have there been, Amjad? I'm not really a smooth person. I don't do a lot of flirting. I don't know how. But one night, I was having a very romantic candlelit dinner with my roommate, as one does. And as I was walking downstairs carrying the brie and the Manischewitz, I thought to myself, I should say something that sets the mood. And I managed to come up with possibly the single worst sentence a human being has ever uttered in their entire life. I walked into this romantic candlelit dinner and went, "Does mother like it when baby wears silk?" Does mother like it when baby wears silk? In what context is that better any situation? Because it's not romance, I can tell you that much. The only situation I think that might be appropriate to say, "Does mother like it when baby wears silk?" is if you were like a Polish midwife and like one of the new mom's skin had been irritated by like the baby's wool jacket. Does mother like it when baby wears silk? I don't think I'm a normal person. But I don't really think that I don't classify anyone as normal. I don't think that human behavior really has much of a basis. I'm gonna be so honest. Like when I was a kid, I thought that to be an adult was to be omnipotent. I thought that everyone knew what they were doing. I thought everyone did what they did for a reason. This was libel. I'm an adult now, and I've just sort of realized that most people don't even know how to act like human beings. Like for example, have you ever sat in the back of a theater? Whoa. I'm pretty certain that people who sit in the back of theaters have never set foot in public before. I went to see a production of Cabaret over the summer, and I was sitting in the back because I bought my tickets late, and the guy who was sitting next to me rolled in 30 seconds after the show began. He was carrying 2 briefcases, because one wasn't enough, and he bought seats for the briefcases, and instead of saying, "Excuse me," he went, "I have arrived." He then proceeded to record the entire performance on a 90s camcorder, and no one stopped him. So, that was a pretty confusing thing to see, but it is very confusing to be a person. I think that's why we come up with all these labels and definitions, and my God, are we obsessed with labels and definitions. And I do have to agree, it's gotten a bit out of hand. Why can't we just take a leaf out of the elementary schoolers book and say that there's only 2 people in this world, innies and outies? If you're an outie, I know all I need to know about you. And if you're an innie, what's not poppin', homies? That used to be such a big deal for us. That was the dividing line between people for like a good solid 8 years of my life. And then one day it just wasn't. And also, why did the dividing line for people go straight from belly button presentation to race? Like, that wasn't the next logical conclusion. There had to have been some gray area in between, don't you think? I'm 22, which means I'm really starting to hit my stride when it comes to being alive. Yes, we made it this far, it's unbelievable. I'm 22, and everyone's always saying like how much they love their 20s. Every conversation I have with a person when I tell them that I'm 22 is like, "Oh my God, if I could be in my 20s again. Oh, do you remember my 20s? Oh, if I could go back and relive my life, I would do it in my 20s. Oh. I have to say, if I'm currently at my peak physicality and optimism, I am not looking forward to the rest of my life. I have what people call like an old soul. I don't really like that term though because I feel like it's been co-opted by girls who like to read. I have more of like a geriatric soul. I have the soul of like an 80-year-old man just sort of stuffed inside of me. I like to scowl at passerby. I like to comment on how much better things were in the good old days. And every time, without fail, that I stand up, I always shakily mutter like, "Oh, good Lord, have mercy." My soul has arthritis and like a pension at this point. Which is tough because, you know, in college, everyone's all like young and boisterous and like, woo, we're only young once, which, you know how college students are. But like when I was in my freshman year, I saw a shirtless man in Emerald one time. And my actual like gut reaction was to shield my eyes, cower, and say, "Oh, good Lord." Like I was an 85-year-old member of the Southern Baptist Church, spitting out her Ritz cracker over a piece of particularly juicy gossip at her weekly Sunday brunch. Ridiculous. Speaking of Ritz crackers, has anyone ever noticed that human beings have this like biologically entrenched need for after every bite of Ritz cracker to tap off the crumbs like they're ashes on a Cuban cigar? Like everyone does this. Children do this. I have a vivid memory of being like 5 years old at the Temple Emmanuel pre-K snack table, just like Castro's really done a number on Havana. I worry about the implications this will have on Santiago. Also, I hope Miss Lipton takes the dollhouse down from the table so I can renovate the attic. I grew up on the Upper West Side, which means, wow, yay. I grew up on the Upper West Side, which means I went to a heinous amount of bar and bat mitzvahs. And there are a lot of, like, Judaism is a religion of a lot of questions and absolutely zero answers. But I really have one big question, which is that why have we allowed bar and bat mitzvah season to take place at the worst stage of human development? Like at 12 to 13, you're asked to plan a party that will plan your social status for like the next 15 years. And like bat mitzvahs are kind of the worst because they go one of two ways. One, either the girl is mean and the entire curation of the guest list was like the second coming of McCarthyism. Or it's horse themed and no one shows up. Bar mitzvahs are actually slightly easier, believe it or not, because there's this very little known law in the Torah that says that all bar mitzvahs have to be baseball themed. Every single one. Think back to it. Every single one was baseball themed. The cookie cake was shaped like a baseball. The party favors were like team-specific glow sticks. Even the Dvar Torah, the speech, somehow just manages to precariously connect back to baseball. Every single bar mitzvah speech goes something like this. Joseph's ability to interpret Pharaoh's dreams saved the Egyptians from years of famine and suffering. I just wish Joseph could tell me how the Mets are going to do this season. I'm great. I grew up on the Upper West Side because we're Jewish, but then my parents moved us upstate when we were 9 because they're insane. My mom is a very crazy person. She's like a Pilates instructor, turned modern dancer, turned actress, turned photographer, turned lesbian, turned wife of my father. When she was in her 20s, she moved to San Francisco, shaved her head, and bought a motorcycle. I'm spending my 20s trying to build my self-esteem by chanting my Grammarly statistics in the mirror. You think confidence like this is natural? No. I have to stand in front of a mirror every morning and go, "You are smart. You're a good person. You use more unique vocabulary than 99% of Grammarly users." How I'm her daughter, I do not know. My mom really wanted me to be just like her when I was a kid, so she signed me up for an alternative after-school sex ed class when I was 13. It was kind of what you would have expected. It was like we talked about consent, we learned about periods, and then at the end of every class, we held hands with our parents in a circle and chanted the names of genitalia. Normal childhood experiences. But I don't know if you could tell by my general vibe or by the Velcro shoes that I'm currently wearing. But I was kind of a very repressed middle schooler. At the age of 13, I wore exclusively turtlenecks that were tucked into my purple corduroy trousers, and I listened to only wizard rock, which if you're thinking, that kind of sounds like Harry Potter-themed rock music, you'd be correct. So all that to say, I wasn't really in the headspace to be receiving some of the information being given to me. So instead of learning some very important things that might become very relevant to me later on in life, I spent the entirety of the class time just sort of staring at the map in the corner of the room to the point of dissociation. So if you ask me today, hey Lulu, what is sex? I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that Bulgaria is a lot farther south than most people would think. A funny story about that sex ed group is that we actually had to do a social experiment in the community. The social experiment was to walk into a Walgreens wearing a shirt that said gay, walk back out, walk back in wearing a shirt that said straight. It feels wrong now, but back then it also felt extremely wrong. It was very uncomfortable for us, the students, but can you imagine how uncomfortable that poor lone Walgreens employee felt? Like, that poor guy was just trying to get through an 8-hour shift without a crackhead with a gun walking in, and instead he was met with like a gaggle of teenagers trying to non-verbally gauge his political stance. I should mention I did not actually partake in this activity because I didn't want anyone to think I had a sexuality. So I made my own shirts, one that said Harry Potter, and the other that said Lord of the Rings, to really get those tough conversations started. My entire childhood, I feel like, was one fairly big alternative experience. I grew up in a very alternative, very crunchy community. I attended, from 3rd through 12th grade, a Waldorf school, which for those of you who don't know, a Waldorf school is like an alternative school system for kids not smart enough for normal private school and not vaccinated enough for public school. The guy who created it, his ties to the Nazi party were not zero. His name was Rudolph, and he believed that right angles were the sign of Satan, that reading destroyed a child's memory, and that science could be explained away by the existence of gnomes. The approach to education, well, I say approach to education. Nothing about that school was approaching education. They more like evaded it like it was the plague, which was kind of ironic considering the plague did go around the school at least 3 times a year. Like, it was sort of like a wild experience. They were really like anti-technology. Like, Waldorf schools are super anti-technology. Like, they're not allowed to watch movies, you're not allowed to listen to music, and you get extra credit if you bind your own books. My high school realized that this might be a problem when they were sending kids out into the world that didn't know anything about a computer. So they decided to teach a history of technology course, but it only went up to the invention of the toaster. Oh yeah, you know, the 3 major inventions that changed the world forever. The printing press, the steam engine, and the KitchenAid Compact 2 Slicer, available at Bed Bath & Beyond for $16.99. It was incredible. Now you might be wondering at this point, what kind of parent would send their child to a school like this? And I grew up in upstate New York, and I just have to say that this is the best option in upstate New York. It was either this school or the local public school, which shut down because they accidentally built it on a swamp. And at some point it began sinking, like the landlubber's variety of the Titanic. My school knew it was the only option as well, and they really liked to push the boundaries of what the tuition would cover. For example, when I was in 8th grade, they canceled all of our academic classes for 4 months so that we could put on a circus. From October to February, I did not crack open a single book or solve a single equation because I was too busy balancing atop a human pyramid for 6 hours a day, while my parents shelled out $25,000 for my education. COVID began in my junior year of high school, and we had to go on Zoom. It made no difference whatsoever to the quality of my education. While everyone around like me was like weeping because they couldn't keep up with AP Lit over Zoom, I was just doing interpretive dance with my school principal on the front porch. That interpretive dance is actually really specific. It was created by the school's founder, Rudolph, and it was called eurythmy. And eurythmy is like this, he thought that eurythmy could cure any human issue in the world. And when my sister was in first grade, my parents approached the school because she had an S-lisp, and instead of offering her speech therapy, they offered her private therapeutic eurythmy classes, which is why my 18-year-old sister still pronounces her favorite animal as horthiv. Unsurprisingly, the Waldorf school system was accused of being a cult. And the French Federation that investigates cults actually opened up a case against the school, and the results were inconclusive. They couldn't decide if the school I attended from 3rd through 12th grade was a cult or just, quote, an ineffective and unfounded educational system. Do you know how bad of a school you have to be for the better option to be cult? I think growing up in that sort of situation really skews your understanding of the world, because there was a boy in my high school class who graduated and thought that blacksmith was still a viable career option in this day and age. He now sells knives on the internet that he photographs himself with his grimy hands in view because technology class didn't cover soap. It was not a normal childhood. I thought I would try and work through this in therapy. Does anyone know how to find a good therapist? Because I don't. I ended up meeting bi-weekly over Zoom with this woman-pigeon hybrid named Roxy. Anytime I said anything to Roxy, she would just coo in response. All of our conversations would go something like this. Roxy, I don't feel like I had an education growing up. Roxy, I can't get over how far South Bulgaria is. Roxy, I get jealous every time my Uber driver accepts another ride in the car. The only time Roxy ever helped me was when I was really struggling with what sound to make when I dressed up as a turtle dove for Halloween. These sessions also cost me $200 out of pocket that I had to Venmo her. And these transactions were always public and under the title session, which I knew what that meant. But everyone else on my Venmo was seeing me send $200 bi-weekly to a certain Roxy under the title session. I received some very accusatory messages after that. Roxy wasn't completely useless though. She did tell me the very hard to access information that eating healthy and exercising is good for you. So I had to start running to prove her wrong. Everyone is running these days. I run every day now. Not because I like it, but because I just would like some say in what the worst part of my day is. Apart from being murdered, waking up and going for a run 3 miles in the cold is kind of the worst way to start your day. Everyone's always like, oh my god, I start my day off on a run because I like to start my day off on the right foot. I start my day off with a run because so that everything else in my life pales in comparison. Everyone's always like, oh my god, running makes you feel so good after you've done it. I'm pretty sure that high only comes from the knowledge that you don't have to run for another 24 hours. It's unbelievable. Running is the worst, but hiking, my god, hiking has to be the dumbest activity on the face of the planet. I think it kind of went the same way as horseback riding, which is to say that it was useful for war, and then the white woman swooped in. Think about it, you used to summit a mountain so you get the best vantage point to the village you wanted to pillage. You return with a couple cows, maybe a new wife. It was a pretty sweet deal. Now all you get is a photo of the view, but your iPhone camera made Yosemite look like Chernobyl. It's unbelievable. Everyone around me loved to hike growing up because it was upstate New York. It's got a lot of mountains. Upstate New York gets a lot of flack. Everyone is always like, there's nothing good about New York other than the city. And I just have to say, as someone from upstate New York, you're 100% correct. It is awful up there. During the pandemic, I had to take up recreational grocery shopping to keep safe. Did anyone else do this? You got to get all dressed up, put on a pair of stylish latex gloves, and go and wander through the bountiful aisles. It felt like Katniss going to the Capitol. It was fantastic. I used to purposefully forget things so that I could just go back out. Remember how we were all told to stay inside and avoid public spaces during the pandemic? I think I single-handedly stopped this country from flattening the curve by my grocery excursions. Truly, where else are we? Good, next page. I think a lot of my, I don't know if you can tell this, but I'm a kind of neurotic and cyclical person. Maybe you can gather that from this whole event. I think I get a lot of that from my dad. He's kind of the exact opposite of my mom. For one, he's not a lesbian. No, but for real, she's like a freewheeling hippie who's kind of yeah, I'd give unpasteurized milk a try. And my dad wears a helmet on his indoor stationary bike. Who is that for? It's a Peloton, Odette. My dad is probably the most ridiculous person I've ever met in my entire life. He's Israeli, we don't have to talk about it. He's a very strange guy. He has very strange food preferences. His two favorite foods in the world are bread that has been burnt and blackened to a crisp. He likes his bread to look like it's been charred on a grill in the zip code of hell. When he bites into it, he wants it to crumble like it's been cremated. His other favorite food are orange peels. He will eat an orange like it's an apple with the skin on and everything. It is very jarring to see. He did this once at my first soccer game of 9th grade, and I believe it was 50% of the reason I did not have any friends till I got to college. And I believe that the reason that I had friends in college initially was because they had not yet met my father. But that all changed one day because I had made some really, really nice, good friends in college, and I decided to have them over for a weekend at my house over the winter. And my dad was there, but things were going pretty well. It was pretty tame at first. One night we were sitting in the living room. We were the fire was crackling, it was very cozy, people were doing puzzles. And then my dad walks in, clementine in hand. And my heart sinks. But then he starts peeling it, and I was like, whoa. This is civilized. Maybe he's evolved. And then he hands the inside of the clementine to my friend Adira. And a wave of dread kind of re-washes over me. She thanks him, thinking this is a sign of his hospitality. Only I am aware of the culinary terrorism about to take place in front of us. And as if in slow motion, in front of all of my new friends, my dad stuffs the entire clementine peel into his mouth. And as if to twist the knife, as he's leaving the room, mouth full, he goes, tasty! We haven't spoken about it since. This might come as a surprise to you, but my dad actually has many friends. But he doesn't really know how to make friends organically. What he does is he goes to a restaurant, picks a person, walks up to them and goes, you are doing nothing tonight? I'm also doing nothing tonight. I come over, we do nothing together. And he has thousands of friends. I saw this happen in real time one time when I took him to a bar, and as we were waiting to be seated, there was a guy sitting kind of near us. And he was alone, and he had a big bowl of French fries. And my dad walks up to him and goes, you are going to eat all of that? And the guy goes, no, it's a lot. And my dad goes, I shall! And he grabs out of this broken man's plate. He's not all strange, though. Sometimes he does things like every other dad does. Sometimes. Does anyone else's dad ever do this thing where they walk 3/4 into the room while you're watching TV? And stare at the TV directly in your line of vision? My dad does this and I'm like, would you like to watch? And he's like, what? No. And then he'll ask me, he'll go where are you getting this from? Which I presume means what streaming service is this on? Which, by the way, can we acknowledge that streaming service names have kind of gotten out of hand? It's humiliating to have to look up a movie in public and go, oh yeah, it's on Bibu Weeboo. I have that. Not only that, but I'm paying Bibu Weeboo $12 a month for the ad-free version of Bibu Weeboo so that I can watch the one crime show that's too vile to be put on Netflix. And those crime shows are vile. My mom is really into those crime shows. She's super into true crime. She has crushes on all the serial killers and says things like, he's just a scared little boy about cannibals. It's really frightening. She's obviously become quite paranoid because she watches these all the time. And It's truly unbelievable. I was sitting in the living room one time with her. I was reading a book. She was doing a puzzle. You've seen this scene before. And just apropos of nothing, she just sighs and goes, you know, Lulu, you just can't buy drugs off the street anymore. Pardon? She's like, Lulu, just promise me you won't buy drugs off the street. This was not a hard promise to make. I'm very scared of drugs. For most of my college years, I didn't even drink. And everyone would ask me, like, Lulu, why don't you drink? And I really never knew what to say, because it's kind of a conversation ender when you tell someone that you're afraid one sip of rosé will land you face down in a gutter. Which obviously doesn't happen very often in real life. But that happens a lot in those crime shows. Like, especially those first few seasons. Like, it's terrifying. I grew up and I thought danger was everywhere because I watched these crime shows. And, like, the first few seasons are really realistic and scary. Like, it's like, oh my God, she was killed in a park and the killer was just a park ranger. That could happen to anyone. Guess I'm not going to parks anymore. But then you get to, like, season 18 of those crime shows, and you can tell that they've kind of run out of the feasible ways for a person to die. It's like, I saw a genuine episode of Criminal Minds on Bibu Weebu one time that was like, a woman was killed by a rogue circus clown hiking in killer woods. And I was like, okay, fairly certain I could avoid that situation if I put in a bit of effort. Like, watching seasons 15 through 1,000 of any crime show just sort of always has you sitting there thinking like, why did she think it was a good idea to go solo hiking in Iraq? That's where they said the killer was, and that he was targeting solo hikers. She's from Portland. She didn't have to be there. It was ridiculous. My dad visited for Parents' Weekend, which was a mistake. He came alone, and he decided to spend the entire weekend pretending to be single. Anytime someone asked him, how's your wife? He'd go, what wife? It kind of sounded like he killed her. But I genuinely don't know how to express to you guys that he has so many friends. And friends that are really cool too. People well outside of his social league. Gay people is what I'm saying. My dad has a lot of gay friends, and it is something that he talks about a lot. And to be fair to him, it is a bit of a miracle that he does. I took him to Coffee Exchange one time, and as we were standing in line, waiting for our drinks, he looks around and out loud goes, lot of LBTGQs here. I like it. Which is honestly not the worst he could have said, because in Israel, the word for gay people is homo. I one time, it sounds wrong. I one time asked him, like, Abba, is that still okay to say? And he goes, yes, they like it better this way. They don't really have a word for bisexual in Hebrew because they're not really a big fan of, like, two things at once there. I'm glad you guys got that. My dad fits in very well with gay men, though, because he's such a drama queen, especially when he's sick. My God, when he has a tickle in his throat, you'd think he was on hospice. Whenever he gets sick, he like gets in bed and pulls the covers all the way up to his chin, and is like, "Hi, Lulu, come check on me in 5 minutes to see if I'm still breathing." He's such a hypochondriac as well. Like, one time he got off a plane and looked in the mirror and saw that his face was sagging, and he went to the ER. It took them 4 tests to convince him that he was just getting old. He's such a hypochondriac, though, like every time he's sick, it's just like, I don't know, I have the corona-19, I know it. I'm like, well, did you test? And he's like, yes, it was negative, but I'm pretty sure it was wrong. I have the corona-19. And I'm like, okay, well, can I get you anything? And he's like, yes, please go make me some bread and burn it very much, please. My dad doesn't really keep kosher or any of the laws of Judaism, really, because I don't think he's really afraid of getting into heaven. I'm pretty sure that he fully believes that on the day that it happens, he's just going to walk up to God and go, you all doing nothing tonight? I'm also doing nothing tonight.